Okay, so looks like Dr. Dan Stern Cardinale didn't want to have a discussion with me. He said it would be too boring. He said he doesn't want to talk about the haplogroups as they may or may not relate to different ancient civilizations. And I guess it's for a good reason because he wouldn't have had a whole lot to say because there's this IJK marker which ties the Eurasians to the Semitic population. And the significance of that is that we know who the IJK marker is. I mean, and we know who shares it is the I, J, and the K. But the IJ, we know who the IJ is because of certain co-modal haplotype, which is the descendants of Aaron, which is a J1. The Judaic people descended from probably King David and King Solomon, most J2s. They're most J2s. So that really, you know, specifically identifies the descendants of course, Israel, Abraham, and his ancestor Arphaxad, which is the grandson of Noah. Now, the only reason why Arphaxad can share an SNP marker with his uncle's descendants is because he's the oldest son of Shem. So the IJs have the marker, including yours truly, because I'm an I. So I have the IJK marker that's shared with the Eurasians. And the Elamites don't have it, which is the next son, Elam. Neither do the Assyrians, descendants of Asher, they don't have it. And neither do Aram or Lud, which would be the F markers. But so he would be kind of like caught in a bind. He wouldn't know what to say about that, I'm pretty sure. And so I can see why he wouldn't want to discuss that because he really wouldn't have anything to say about it because you're talking genetics now. You're talking S&P markers. You're talking basically absolute proof that Arphaxad's descendants are IJ because he's the only possible one that could share an S&P marker with his uncle Japheth. And of course, the out of Africa assumes the opposite. They're assuming that somehow the IJ gained the marker and passed it on to the K. And supposedly the K is descended from the IJ, but that's just nonsense. That's how can the descendants of Arphaxad be progenitors of Eurasian? That's just nonsense. So that doesn't work. So the truth is that it's exactly backwards from the out of Africa in that instead of gaining markers, they're losing markers at the top, going from K to IJK to H, G, F. And then when you get to the Hamitic population, the Hamitic populations are connected to the Semitic population and, of course, not descended from or not the progenitor of. And because besides C is the only can only possibly be Nimrod because he's the only Hamitic great person that from Mesopotamia, from the area of Eurasia or Asia, Western Asia. Of course, the C went all the way into Europe. C1 goes into Europe. C2 goes in like India. C3 goes through Mongolia, all the way to America. C4 goes to Australia, and there might be a C5 somewhere too, somewhere. All Hamitic descendants, but the way they're connected to the Semitic is that Nimrod had to have been the oldest son of Cush, who is the oldest son of Ham, and then the odd ones out are all the brothers and cousins of Nimrod. So the odd ones out would be the A, the B, the D, and the E. Because there are markers that tie there's a BT marker, there's a CT marker, which connects everybody, but the CF marker is the only one that's in common with the descendants of Nimrod and the Semitic populations. But like I said, it can't be. Hello, Dan Straight. Oi, como é que vai? Como é que tá? Tudo bem. Oh, D-Trees. For yeah, there we go. Might want to book IJK and HIJK and IJK that tie to CF sons. Well, that's what I'm trying to explain is that instead of gaining markers going from left to right, you're losing markers going from right to left. That's the way that I see it. Hello, Dana. DE is separate by itself. DE is one, as they are the only YAP and plus groups. DE is completely by itself. That would be the descendants of Mitzrayim, Put, and Canaan all together. And then the descendants of Cush would be A and B and C. And the D, of course, is compatible with the E. So I believe the D is an offshoot from E2. E2 was probably Canaan. It's always information lost, not gained. Well, I mean, they are markers. They're gained when it comes to the individual haplogroup markers. They're gained because they, for example, only the IJ has the marker of the IJ marker. Only there's markers exclusively to the A, the B, the C, the D, the E. Those markers are gained because they're exclusive to that lineage, that population. But when it comes to the relationship, Ham is the youngest son, so he can't possibly be the root of the tree. The root of the tree has to be with the Eurasian K descendants. So the Eurasian K descendants are the root of the tree, most original. Then they're linked to the Semitic population by way of the IJK marker. And then there's the I marker and the K and the J marker, exclusive to the I and the J. There's no gain show source. Well, if you're an I or if you're a B or whatever, you have markers that are unique to you that identify you as an I or a B or a D or an E. They and nobody else in the world has them, so they're exclusive to you. So they are a marker that was gained, and they can both be gained and lost anyways. I've already verified that anyways. You can either gain them or lose them, you know. And it's a general thing anyways. It's generally speaking, all the descendants of I have the I marker because he could have lost it as well. So there's that too. The sons of Japheth family, the FM89. I'm not FM89. Our sons are Japheth family. If that's the K, yeah, if that's the K, that would be all Japheth, sons of Japheth. The R is Japhethite. The J comes from the IJK, as well as the T. The T, yeah, the T is, yeah, that's my sound effects. I'm swimming. The T is Eurasian. The DE are separate by themselves because the D is an offshoot from the E. The D in Asia, the Jomans and the Ainu Japanese, they have the D haplogroup. They're an offshoot of the tribe of Cain and Sinim in all probability. So it'd be the Sinite tribe that took the name to Mount Sinai. Mount Sinai is from the Sinite tribe, and they just kept on going, went all the way to the land of Sinim, which bears their name as well. But they're descendants of the Sinite tribe of Cain. Hello, Praise. How you doing? So it's really interesting, but Dan didn't want to have a discussion. He said it'd be too boring. It wouldn't be entertaining. He thought, but I thought it would be very entertaining. But he didn't. It wouldn't be entertaining for him probably to have a discussion like that. So he wrote me an email, said it wouldn't be entertaining. Well, if it's entertainment you want, you can. There's other things you can do, but if it's science you want to talk about, we can talk about science and genetic markers and co-and-modal haplotypes and the largest haplogroup in the Jewish population, which is J, which is of course J2. The other one, the co-and-modal haplotype, is J1, and they're all connected to Arphaxad, including myself, because I'm an I. I have an I, so I have the IJK marker. C isn't of Ham, says Dietrich, but he is, because C is Nimrod. He's the son of Cush, so he has to be from him. He's the son of Cush. It can't be anybody else. The only Hamitic house from a kingly house was Nimrod. He's the only Cushite descendant that was the king of the whole world and had what's called the house of Nimrod, which is all his male descendants, which incidentally became rulers of the Assyrians as well. All of Mesopotamia, they ruled everything. And you can actually see if you the Sumerians, the rulers of the Sumerians, the elite class of the Sumerians were the descendants of Nimrod. And it looks like they even have a hairnet in the back of their neck, even. But they were the ruling class, and they went all the way to Europe. And the C1 went all the way to Europe, of course. And it just can't be anybody else. It can only be the descendants of Nimrod, the C haplogroup, which is, of course, an offshoot of B, which is, the SNP says an offshoot of B, so it has to be descendants of Cush. So Cush has to be B, and A would be an offshoot of that too, be the same offshoot. Since the markers are being lost instead of gained, so it's either the A or the B is the most original, but that would be Cush. Cush would be the A and the B. The source, though, for C origins Uh, it, well, like I said, it can't be anybody else because Nimrod is the only Hamitic king of Mesopotamia, so it can't be anybody else. And that's what got me started on this whole haplogroup thing was me looking at the C haplogroup and said, how in the world where did this C come from in Mesopotamia? Who could it be? And I'm thinking Nimrod. Now, who's the father of Nimrod? And then it just dawned on me, Cush is the father of Nimrod, and so it can't be anybody else. And then, of course, the D is the Canaanite tribe. The E1, E2, and E3 would be put Mitzrayim and Canaan, or put Canaan and Mitzrayim in that order, because because the D is compatible with the E2 being descended from E2. So that's where I believe the D fits nicely as a descendant of the Sinite tribe, which is a Canaanite tribe, and the C fits nicely with being a descendant of Cush, and the E3 fits nicely with the largest family, which was Mitzrayim, is E3. So everybody that has the E3 haplotype, which is a large majority or large population of Africa, is descended from Mitzrayim directly. So, and then the other ones, of course, are Cush, Put, and Canaan, which are still in Africa, but not as large as the E3. But the Cush is fairly large population though. But anyway, it was nice talking with everybody. It's up to 46% of Aboriginal Australian males carry either the basal C. Yeah, they're either C or K. K being the Eurasian, of course, and C would be descendants of Nimrod. Yeah, as well as the Polynesians, as well as the Nadani in America, and the Quechua tribe in South America, and the Waorani tribe, and they have the C haplogroup as well. So the C haplogroup went all the way to America. The Waudanis, the Wayu tribe, and the Quechuas. All those three tribes have the C haplogroup in their population. So they're all descendants of Nimrod as well, in fact, as the Nadani or Nadane in North America, would be the Nadane tribal people. But the interesting thing to me is that the Olmec statues look Polynesian. A lot of people say they look African. They don't exactly look African. They look kind of Polynesian, a little bit Polynesian, but it would explain, it would make sense that they were related to Polynesians, since the Polynesians are C2, and if they were C3, the other tribe. So that's why they resemble a Polynesian tribe, the Olmec statue heads. So logically, C has to be with the CF nodes of Japheth that make all the IJK. No. You're squeezing. You're squeezing it all together. CF is the marker that the descendants of Nimrod share with the Semitic populations and the Eurasian populations. Because Japheth is big, but it's not that big, and the J, the colomodal haplotype, identifies J1 as being the descendants of Aaron, Moses' brother, and the the Jewish population, of course, is J2, which would be descendants of Judah. And so it can't be anybody else. The Jewish people can't be any other population, just like C can't be any other population, any other, descendants. But if you wanna discuss it or prove otherwise, that's fine. Um, the source is the Cohen modal haplotype and the majority haplogroup of the Jewish population, which is J2. The Cohen modal haplotype is J1, which is a big spike. Almost 50% of the Cohen modal haplotype Cohenim have that marker of J1, which is a huge spike compared to all the other haplotypes. All the other haplogroups, they don't even have. They might have 5.5 or 0.4 or I don't know if it's 5 or 4%. They have a lot less of the of a spike as being Cohen. Or so, in other words, the Cohen that are supposed to be descendants of Aaron's, they don't have very many people with other haplogroup markers. The biggest marker, the biggest spike, is with a J1 P58 or something like that. That's the biggest marker. So that would be your source on that, and the fact that what got me started was this C, trying to figure out who C was, or who was the progenitor of the C descendants, and it just couldn't be anybody else. It had to be the king of the whole world in the house of Nimrod, with all his sons, which was a huge population, which later became the ruling class of the Sumerians, the Assyrians. And the Bible actually ties Assyrians with Nimrod. There's a verse in the Bible that says that God would free Israel from the bonds or the bonds of Nimrod and Assyria, or Assyria and Nimrod. So the Bible ties Assyria and Nimrod together. So and the secular historians, they don't know that the Sumerians are actually the Assyrians with a ruling class of the descendants of Nimrod that are fighting lions or whatever. So and of course they were taller. I mean, Nimrod was taller. I don't know about the rest of them, but it does depict the rulers of the Sumerians as being taller. And but that's what the evidence is. I'm not making up stuff. I'm just saying that who else could it be? Who else could it be besides the descendants of Nimrod that are Hamitic? Because C is definitely Hamitic, and the E1, E2, E3, those are all Hamitic too. And of course, A and the B are Hamitic, and the C, they're Hamitic. And the D is Hamitic too, because they were there all the way from the Sinai tribe, which is a Canaanite tribe, which is Hamitic. The Canaanite tribe of the land of Sinai and the land of Sinim are descendants of the Sinai tribe. And they were later pushed out by the descendants of Magog, which is the O, but they're still there. The Tibetans are D, Mongolians are D, the Ainu Japanese are D, and they were pushed north all the way into northern Japan, and they're the ones with the beards and the curly or wavy hair. Dark hair, of course, but But anyways, those are the D descendants. Those are the descendants of Canaan, which is Hamitic. So that it all fits together very well. You know, when you consider the Cohen modal haplotype, the J2 majority haplogroup in the Jewish population, regardless of whether it's secular or not. The only one that comes close would be an E something or other, but I don't. That's only in the secular populations, but it's still not the majority, even with the secular population, secular Jewish populations. You know, the more secular. But for the Ashkenaz and the Sephardic Jews that kept all the customs and kept the practices and stayed to themselves, you know, to a large extent, with a few exceptions. You know, their majority haplogroup is J2 in all the Jewish populations. You know, but that's what it is. You know, that's I mean, you can't argue with the facts. You can't argue with DNA because that's just what the evidence is. So so actually, yeah, the land of Sinim. You've heard of the land of Sinim, right? That's the Bible says He'll bring people from as far as the land of Sinim, and thanks, Dana. And the, the you know the if you follow the Silk Road, you'll actually find J2 going all the way to China. The Uyghurs are they have the largest population in the Uyghur population is J2, which is Jewish, and Bible says they'll come from as far as the land of Sinim, which is China. And of course, the Uyghurs are like along the Silk Road. They're like Mongolia or somewhere, Tibet, somewhere like that area. So you think Ham is CT? Well, Ham shared the same SNP as his two other brothers, right? I'm sure the descendants of Ham, have a lot of the SNPs of his two other brothers, Shem and Japheth, right? That's possible, right? So the CT is what's remaining. The CT is not the CT. The CT includes the DE, right? So that's still not exclusive to the Semitic and Eurasian population or the rest of the world going from left to right. The XDE, right? So that's no the CF. The CF is XDE, right? So the CF is the one exclusive to the descendants of Nimrod and the Semitic populations and the Hamitic populations. That would be the CF. But the CT includes the D and the E. So, but that's possible because the descendants of Ham, some of the descendants of Ham could share SNPs with the rest of the world. That's obvious, right? So they do. They do share the SNPs. The CT includes the D and the E. The only ones excluded are the A and the B with the CT, right? It's the CF that is exclusive to C, XDE, and F, which is F and the rest of the world, F and K, all the way to T. So is Japheth CT and Shem also CT? No, Shem isn't CT. He just shares the marker with the oldest son of Ham and his oldest son of Cush, except the oldest descendants of Ham. I mean, the younger descendants of Ham don't have it. Only the oldest son. I mean, the oldest son of Cush has the the CF marker. The CT marker includes the D and the E, but Shem, the descendants of Shem are F, G, H, I, and J. The descendants of Japheth are K. And like I said, the connection between the Eurasians and the Semitic population is the IJK. The connection between the Hamitic populations and the rest of the world would be the CF by way of Nimrod. That's exclusive to Nimrod's descendants and the rest of the world, Asia and Middle East, or Semitic populations and Eurasians. You try to say Japheth is only K. Japheth is K. D is far removed from K, because, well, in the sense that Japheth is the oldest son of Shem, oldest son of Noah, and D is compatible with E. There's an offshoot of E. So yeah, K is exclusive. K is exclusive to Eurasians. The IJK connects only the descendants of Arphaxad with Eurasians, and not the Elamites. The Elamites are H. Elamites are clearly H because they're called Elamo-Dravidian to this day, and the only Semitic haplogroup in the area that's not Gomer is the H. And then the Assyrians would be G, and the Arameans and Lydians would be F. 1, 2, 3, whatever. How many Fs there are, I don't know. That are exclusive. No, Noah is all the haplogroups, right? Descendants of Noah are A through T. Those are the descendants of Noah, A through T. The descendants of Ham are A through E. The descendants of Shem are F through J. And the descendants of Japheth, which is the oldest, most original, is K. Knows what truly is CT. No, I know what CT. CT includes D and E. The one that doesn't include D and E, the one that's X, D, and E, is CF. CF means Nimrod and the rest of the world, which is the reason why they use that marker to connect the C to the rest of the world. But their idea is that everybody is descended from C, but we're not descended from C. C is the descendant of B or A, and you still have, put Canaan and Mitzrayim. That's the descendants from Ham. See, below Noah existed, but if you want to ask what the most original genome would, it be K. The most original is K. Let's see. See, the only CT I understand, CT scan, yeah, hospital, I love inside. No, yeah, this is not a CT scan. Noah has to be a root node. Yeah. Okay, so the root of the tree of all of us has to be with the oldest, most original, oldest genome. So that would be the descendants of Japheth. So you have to root the tree with Japheth. So when you root the tree with K, everything fits perfectly. and then it's the oldest son of Shem that shares the SNP marker with his uncle Japheth, but not his younger brothers. His younger brothers, in other words, when Arphaxad was born, Arphaxad shared the marker with his uncle Japheth that he got from his father Shem, right? But then when his younger brothers were born, Shem lost that marker and didn't have it to give it to the Elamites or the Assyrians or the Arameans or the Lydians because Shem lost that marker. So that's why they don't share, the younger brothers don't share the IJK marker because they're younger brothers. Of course, there's going to be a marker that they're not going to have with their older brother who got it from his father, who was the brother of Japheth. So that makes sense. That's possible. See, what's the difference in a node versus a clade? Because Noah has to be in a Noah that makes the Ham, Shem, and Japheth. Well, you start out with the most original genome, which is Japheth, the father of the Eurasians. And then as time goes on, people are going to start losing markers. And it shows there's going to be a progression there as time goes on. See, K isn't a root deeper than C or CT. Well, but if you assume that C and CT is the most original, but it's not, because C is Hamitic and Ham is the youngest son. So the youngest son can't be the root of the tree. The root of the tree has to be on the opposite end. The opposite side has to be with the oldest, most original haplogroup, which is Japheth. And there's enough haplogroups under K to account for all the Eurasians, because it can't be IJ. IJ can't be Eurasians because of the Cohen-Modal haplotype and the J2 of the Jewish population. So that starts the Semitic lineage descendants, and then of course Elam is Semitic. That's an H. Assyrians are Semitic. That's a G. Arameans are Semitic. That's a F. And Lydians are Semitic. And that's an F, something or other. But then the E's, that would be the E, 1, 2, and 3 are descendants of Ham, because it's all E, for crying out. It's all E. It's all one lineage. The E is one lineage. It's E1, E2, and E3, which is descendants of Put, which was the original North African, which used to be called Phoenicians, but the Phoenician name got carried on elsewhere. And then it's the A and the B. The A and the B are descendants of Cush. Cush being the oldest son, and then it's E1, E2, and E3. E1 would be Put, E2 would be Canaan, as far as I can tell, and E3 is all Mitzrayim, which is a huge lineage. E3 is a big lineage. So Ham is the youngest. Ham is the youngest. No, the XDE is with the CF marker. The CF marker is the XDE. That's the CF marker. That means Nimrod shares the SNP with the rest of the world, but doesn't share. But his younger brothers and cousins, none of them have the SNP of the CF. The only one they do have is the CT. The CT is Nimrod shares with the D and E. The CT is shared by Nimrod and the D and the E, which is E1, E2, and E3. But that's the best way I can figure it out. If somebody wants to, convince me otherwise, that'd be nice. I mean, based on fossil finds and mutations, C is older than okay. Well, C, because C they found C in Europe and they assumed it was older. Because out of Africa, they assumed that C was older. Because C is the connection with the rest of the world. C connects Africa with the rest of the world. C is the out of Africa SNP. The CF. That's the out of Africa SNP. So that's why they assume that C was older. And of course, when you start talking so many 60, 20, 60, 70,000 a year, that's way off. Because we're not descended from each other like that. We're three lineages that are separate from each other with the same basic age. The Hamitic population, the Hamitic genome is not older. It's not older than the Semitic. It's younger. It's not older than the Eurasian. It's younger. Because the Eurasian would be Japheth. Of course, Japheth went north, right? So it's all the ones in the north. And not so much in the Middle East. It's in Anatolia. It's descendants of Japheth are in Greece. They were in Anatolia, but they moved out. But they're in Greece. They're in Italy. They're in Europe. The G was in Europe. You got Ashkenaz, Ripfath, and Togarma in Europe, or at least Ashkenaz and Ripfath. Togarma, I think, went to India. Let's see. Here we go. Because I, from the IJK, I is a part of the IJK. I has the IJK marker. And it has the I marker and the K marker. I mean, not the K marker, but the IJK is connected to J. So the I is a part of J. And no, K is the oldest. It's the opposite of the out of Africa. It's going the opposite way. It's not going from left to right. It's going from right to left. So K is the oldest, Shem is the middle, and Ham is the youngest. So the stair step, if there is a stair step, which is not exactly a stair step, it's just that they share a marker with their uncles. That's because the oldest genome is K, and it goes from right to left, not left to right. It comes down three basics, as Jungle Drawings point out. Yeah, the RT, there's RT and others like Q, LMNO. Yeah, those are all Japhethites. The Q is the Medes, the R is Gomer, the T is Javan, the L is Tiraz, the M is a branch of K. It's probably from Tubal. The N is Meshach. The O is Magog. From and the M and the S, the M and the S are probably branches off from K, which is right in the area of Australia and Papua New Guinea and that area. So the M and the S are both in Papua New Guinea, and it's right next to K, where the K is. So it's probably a branch off from K, which is Tubal, as far as I can tell. And Tubal settled in Italy, and to this day, Tubal, there's an 8% of central Italy is K, descendants of Tubal. because they were the original inhabitants of Italy. That's why there's K. 8% to this day, 8% of central Italy is K. Right from that. It's from east to west, yeah. Geneticist. Well, that's what I want to talk to a geneticist today. I wanted to talk to Dr. Dan today, and but he said it wouldn't be interesting. He backed out because the evidence is just too much for him. The evidence is just too strong for him, you know, because he can't deny, he's Jewish, he can't deny the Cohen modal haplotype. He can't deny the J2 as being Arphaxad. The I and J is Arphaxad. He can't deny that. So if the I and J is Arphaxad, that means K is Japheth, and that means H is Elam, which fits, and of course the gypsies in Europe are H2, so they're descendant, but they're not only just H. The gypsies are also J2, and they claim to be Jewish too. The gypsies claim to be a mixture of Jewish and Elamites. Well, they don't know it's Elamite, but they do claim to be Jewish. And they do have a J2. The second largest haplogroup in their population is J2. So that's the gypsies. They're both Elamite and Judaic. And like I said, the Uyghurs are J2. They have the largest haplogroup in the Uyghur population is J2. You know, so there's a lot of interesting things to find. There's a lot of interesting things. Believes about why would anyone just take random information from someone that's showing no sources? I gave you, don't lie. I gave you the source. It's the Cohen modal haplotype. It's the J2 of the Jewish population. And it's the H Elamite, which is the Elamo-Dravidians have the H. That's the Semitic haplogroup in the Elamo-Dravidian population. The other one would be Gomer. The R is Gomer. That's not Semitic. So, you know, it all fits together very well. And more things fit together too. More things. Once you start, it's a process of elimination. Once you figure out that C is Nimrod and IJ is Arphaxad and K is Japheth, once you figure that out, it's you know, everything fits together. And of course, the African population was the hardest for me because, for one thing, I didn't know a whole lot about the history or anything. But it took me a while to figure out that divided up between A, B, and C, and E, which is E1, E2, and E3. But that's the way it has to go. Early church history. You want early church history? Church history isn't Judaic. I mean, Martin Luther was an I, which I'm not too proud of, but that's because he persecuted the Jews in Europe. And anyway, so let's keep faith in the word, not made up monophyletic families. Well, I'm sticking to what the Bible says. I mean, I'm not going against what the Bible says. It's I mean, you can't say the Jews aren't Jews because they, you know, they suffered years and years for being Jews, for keeping to themselves all this time, and they have the commandment of the Cohen modal haplotype, which identifies the J1 as being I mean, not the whole J1, this J1 P58. Those being the descendants of Aaron, Moses' brother. So, I mean, you can't argue with that. That's biblical. That's biblical. It's the command of God to have every Cohen tell his son that he's descended from Aaron, Moses' brother. See, I said sources for C in Africa. Well, C is not in Africa. That's the problem. The whole problem is that C isn't even in Africa. And if you're going to have Nimrod as king of the world, he's going to have some descendants. Where are the descendants of the house of Nimrod? And we know that they were associated with the Assyrians because the Bible links them with the Assyrians. So they were the ruling class, descendants of Nimrod, that of the Assyrians that almost annihilated Israel. The Assyrians went up. They went up against Jerusalem, and that's the only time they failed was when they went up against Jerusalem because God God prevented them from going there. But they were a real menace. The Assyrians were a real menace to Israel, and the Bible links Assyria with Nimrod as being the ruling class. So everything fits together. I'm talking about second century early church. Yeah, the early church really is not going to be. I mean, if you have something to tie that into genetics, I don't know how you're going to tie that to genetics. Like the apostolics, which means pertaining to the disciples like Polycarp or Ignatius. Well, you have their DNA. I don't know if you have their DNA. If they're descended from the apostles, because genetics is subjective. No, genetics is. I mean, it's not absolute because it can change. Like, I could lose the IJK marker, or my descendants could lose it, or somebody could lose it. It's not absolute in that sense, but if you got it, if you have the IJK marker and you're an I, it means you're a descendant from Arphaxad. And if you're a J, you're descended from Abraham, in all probability, or Arphaxad at any rate, a Hebrew of some kind. Almost daily English language. I prefer KJ version. Yep. Well, it's been real. It's been fun talking to you guys. Always love to have a discussion, but you really can't argue with history. It's known human history, and I don't know how else you can explain the sea being, in Europe and Asia and the Middle East and all the way to the Americas. I mean, that's a huge genetic lineage, and it could only be from somebody like Nimrod. Who's the descendants of Nimrod? Somebody tell me who's the descendants of Nimrod. Otherwise, where is the Hamitic haplogroup in Europe, Asia, and the Middle East, and the Americas? The only Hamitic haplogroup is C. It's the only possible Hamitic haplogroup is C. So that would have to be Nimrod. So that's what I wanted to discuss with Dr. Dan. He backed out on me. He chickened out. He said it wouldn't be interesting for him because of course, there's nothing he could be able to say. Is IJK Noah? No. IJK is a SNP. It's a marker that Arphaxad shares with his uncle Japheth and his descendants. That's all it is. Then when Shem gave birth to Elam, he no longer had the IJK marker. And when he gave birth to Asher, he didn't have the IJK marker. And when he gave birth to Aram and Lud, he didn't have the IJK marker to give it to him. But when Arphaxad was born, since he was the oldest son of Shem, he shares the SNP marker with his uncle Japheth. Can you show a source in the Bronze Age? I gave you the source. The source is the Cohen modal haplotype and the J2 marker of the Jewish people. I already gave you the source. And the C, which I'm trying to tell you about the C. It can't be anybody else other than Nimrod. Can you show? Because once you understand it, it'll all fit together. Once you understand the C is Nimrod, and IJ is Arphaxad, and K is Japheth. Once you understand that, then everything fits together perfectly. Because otherwise, it's not gonna make any sense. So the IJ came from IJK. No, he shares a marker with his uncle Jacob. The HIJK has been found in, well, it doesn't matter where it's found. The thing is Guadalquivir too. Basal IJK was found in the Upper Paleolithic. It doesn't matter where it's found. You can make up all the stuff you want. It's not going to change the fact that the coed modal haplotype is J1P58, and the haplogroup of the Jewish people is J2. It's not going to change that fact. Let God be found true, though every man is a liar. Absolutely. Yep. And I mean, God put the coed modal haplotype in the descendants of Aaron, for crying out loud. I mean, what more do you want? What more do you want? That's unreal. You can't ask for anything more. And then C has to be Nimrod. C, it can't be any other house. It's not the house of David. The house of David is J2 M172, probably. That's the house of David. But the C is not the house of David. Who's the C? Which Hamitic king is there in Mesopotamia and Asia and everywhere else? Which Hamitic king is there? There's only one Hamitic king in the area that could possibly be, and that's Nimrod. So that's about it. I'm not going to go back and forth too much, but thanks again for everybody participation. God bless everybody. Stay close to God. Stay close to the truth. And like Dietrich says, let God be found true, though every man is a liar. God bless everybody. Take care.